For the first time in the history of our country, half of all the ministers are women. 50% of our ministers are now women. We have also included a significant number of young people. This is in fulfillment of our commitment to giving young people roles of responsibility in all sectors of society.
That is, of course, President Cyril Ramaphosa making good on the promise of gender parity, saying that they have managed to, of course, get that 50% in now. Only a few months old as leader of the Good Party, but an old hand at politics and the political game in South Africa. Patricia De Lille is now serving as a member of the opposition in President Cyril Ramaphosa's new cabinet in the ministry that is crucial for the country's infrastructure build. She will also preside over the largest property portfolio in the country in her capacity as Public Works Minister. Minister Patricia De Lille, thank you so very much. A warm welcome to The Fix.
Thank you.
Now,
thank you.
Minister, you were saying that shortly after you heard what position that you were given, that you were a little overwhelmed. You didn't know what was going to happen. When I listened to members of the DA, they were kind of saying that, you know, you have now made your choices. You're serving in the government. You'll have to take responsibility. But I want to take a step back. How long ago have you been in consultations with President Ramaphosa about possibly joining his party? Was it when you took that break to kind of consult about what your next move was going to be when you left the DA, or was it a fairly recent thing and did it come as a complete surprise?
Karima, it came as a complete surprise. I got a call on Wednesday afternoon around about 2:30, requesting by the President that he want to see me. I then left and got to Pretoria and to Johannesburg at about 6 o'clock, and about 7:45 that night I had my meeting with President. The President made a call on me to serve our country. He had requested that I join his executive. And in terms of the Constitution, the executive is there to execute all the plans of government. I bring with that my experience of having been in government for almost 8 years. And so, no, I didn't have any prior consultation with the President. In fact, when I had to stay over for the swearing in the next day, I didn't even come prepared with proper clothes. I only had my jeans, and I had to go and buy some clothes for the occasion. So, you know, I think it's an honor, and I'm humbled. I really don't care. You know, empty vessels make the most noise. You know, people don't understand how government work. I think South Africans must all pull together to make sure that we fix our country. We've wasted a number of years, which there are backlog on many issues. And it is up to Parliament also to hold the executive to account. So I'm looking forward to getting my hands dirty, hit the road running, and I've started already.
Minister, the one thing, of course, that you're going to have to look at is the question of infrastructure build. Now, there's been a lot of discussion, particularly when you were the mayor of Cape Town, around spatial planning and breaking apartheid spatial planning. Now, the DA has already said that you have to cede certain land to them so they can start building housing for the poor. What is going to be your approach to breaking the patterns of geographic and spatial planning when it comes to infrastructure. I just spoke to the Transport Minister, Fikile Mbalula, and I was saying to him, he obviously has to sit with ministers such as yourself. It's pointless you building infrastructure where people are not living or when you work in silos. What kind of approach are you going to have to integrating South Africa properly so that we have workers who don't have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to be at work at 6?
Yes. The contribution of infrastructure to economic growth in our country is critical. It is not the role of government to create jobs. Government must create the conditions and the environment conducive for the economy to grow. And so the role of government is to invest in infrastructure, to make sure that we've got water security, electricity security, that the economic growth of our country is in a good state, and that we have partnerships with the private sector and have a crowding in effect, and that can stimulate economic growth. So yes, about 4 years ago, the CSIR produced a report about the state of infrastructure in our country. And I will have to study that report, and we have to prioritize. But the investment that must come from government must make sure that at the same time, while we're building infrastructure, we also begin to look at the apartheid spatial planning. I think it's an indictment on all of us that 25 years into our new democracy, we have not integrated our cities and our towns. I have started the project in Cape Town 3 years ago because we must bring especially poor people closer to well-located land and closer to transport. So what I did in the city of Cape Town was to merge transport and urban planning so that the planners don't decide they're going to buy cheap land outside of the city and build houses there, but we look at where are the existing transport and where you are still going to roll out new transport. So I bring that experience because I think we must now show that we, after 25 years, that we bring people that have been forcibly removed by the apartheid government and put into far-flung areas outside of the cities. We must bring our people back to economic opportunities.
Now, you obviously also managing what people call the largest property portfolio in the country. You are the Public Works Minister as well. Now, there's been a huge issue around corruption in this department. It was said that Mr. Thulas Nxesi was about to suspend quite a lot of officials for wrongdoing. We know about the way in which the department participated in the Nkandla scandal. How are you going to go about, Minister, just making sure that you have a handle on which government buildings you actually own as the state? Because that register was also something that took a very long time to get ready. Many government buildings have, for example, just landed in private hands. We have a situation where Minister, or rather the DA, Mayor Mr. Herman Mashaba is taking private property in the city, expropriating it, and looking at making it available for people in poorer communities so that they can work and live in the city close to economic activity. How are you going to make sure that we know what the government owns, and how are you going to make sure that those buildings are put to good use?
I certainly depart from the point of view that public land must be used for public good, and there are thousands of hectares in the hands of all three spheres of government. So one, you need to have those all three spheres of government working together to release that land. Secondly, public assets must also be managed in a way that those assets, one, generate some income for government, and secondly, that we need to repair and maintain the infrastructure. And again, you know, I will have to do an audit on to see Where do we have buildings? What is the size of land in the possession of government? And I'm having a meeting with Minister Nesi on Tuesday, where he will be handing over. And then I will be able to measure the extent of that. And after my meeting with him, I'll certainly go out to all the provinces, go and visit the actual sites and see what we have. Because if we can identify well-located land and buildings that can be released for well-located affordable housing, then we need to have a plan for that. But in any government department, we must put, and I will put systems in place that one can detect corruption and secondly can prevent corruption. The existing corruption allegations that's there, I'm not aware about. I will hear from the minister. But we should not be reacting after the event. If there are systems in place, you will be able to detect the corruption and thereby also make sure that you get clean audits. I will be having a meeting with the Auditor General to understand all the management letters, all the remedial action that the AG has proposed in the past, and I will make sure that those things are implemented and start the new financial year on a clean slate, making sure that the AG's advice is implemented and that we go forward trying to limit and to take out corruption in the system.
Now, you've been an anti-corruption buster for a long time. You blew the whistle on the arms deal. In Cape Town, you had this ugly spat with the DA that never came to fruition because they never charged you. You left the party. How are you going to go about dealing with people who are corrupt in the department, especially since you're an opposition minister? You can sometimes come up against, intra-party hierarchies that you're not aware of, people who are powerful that you don't necessarily know. What is your message to those who work for public works and infrastructure? And how are you going to go about making sure that you don't have party political deals, taking precedence over what is in the public interest and what is in the public good?
Definitely, Karima, what we must do as a matter of principle, that one, we are all equal before the law. I will send a very strong message out to all the 6,000 employees of the Department of Public Works. I don't even want to smell corruption anywhere. Secondly, is that we need to also begin to make sure that training takes place about what is the role and function of this department. We've got the broad framework of the National Development Plan. How far have we come in implementing that? So allegations must be tested. I mean, I've been a victim of all kinds of allegations, and they need to be tested in an open court of law. You need to bring the evidence. And so I will hear what kind of measures the previous minister has put in place and start building on that. But I'm not in a position yet, I'm there for 2 days now, to pronounce on any of the issues within the department until I have the meeting with the minister on Tuesday.
All right. Now, Minister, you are also the leader of the Good Party. We've got a municipal election coming up in 2 years' time. How are you going to manage working in the executive of Cyril Ramaphosa and also growing the Good Party as a national party with a role to play, with a plan on the table for South Africans?
Well, I think people seem to underestimate my commitment and my way of working. I don't mind to work 24 hours. As the Good Movement, we've already put our local government strategy in place. We're participating in our first by-election very soon. I've got a good team of competent people around me. I will balance my time between giving the service to all the people of South Africa, and at the same time using the foundation of the votes that we've received now in 2019 to continue to build the good movement. You know, today it's not how difficult things are. You have to work smarter and you have to work harder. And I'm committed to do both. I will find the time. There are many examples of where people have served in the executive, have been political party leaders, and you have to do both. Because politics is about, you know, solving the problems of the people and at the same time serving government. So I don't underestimate my capacity. I know that I'm able to do it, and I will prove all of those who are doubting whether she will be able to do it, I will prove them wrong.
Minister, the one thing that I want to ask you is the fact that many people see your appointment to the cabinet as a big breakthrough to deal with issues around the national question. And when people talk about the national question, they basically talk about different ways of being black in South Africa. So, for example, in a place like the Western Cape, historically the coloured vote has been behind the DA. But if you look at a place like the Northern Cape, and you've worked there yourself, the Northern Cape coloured community has consistently worked for or voted for the African National Congress. Do you think that people see you as a representative of a particular group, or do you think they see you as a national leader that can lead all the people of South Africa?
Well, I certainly, in my own work, I am a public servant for all the people of South Africa, irrespective of race, color, or creed, sexual orientation, all of those things, because we've got one of the best constitutions in the world, and you must always be guided by our constitution. Now, yes, there are some perceptions, and people are also entitled to, to say who and what they want to be. But my departure point has always been that we are all South Africans first, and thereafter by choice. If you want to call yourself black or colored or white or Indian, that's also your choice. But the racial divisions and separation is the legacy of apartheid that we are dealing with. And we certainly have not been able, after 25 years, to effectively deal with the racial divisions in our past. And therefore, racism must be tackled head on. I know there are many people or many leaders who shy away from dealing with racism, but we should never allow racists to speak for us in our country. So the colored question always just come up before elections. You will never hear there's a debate to say, I wonder how the Indian people or the black people will vote. It's always just around the colored question. But if people are not so lazy, and they can go and do research, they will in fact see that since 1994 that the colored grouping of people are the most democratic in South Africa, because they are not just giving their vote away. They vote for the ANC, the UDM, the DA, voted for Good, and all political parties. And that is the kind of democracy that we need to build, where it's not on the basis of race, but on the basis of issues. I think if we all go that route, because I always say, if you look at poverty in our country, you know, the problems of our people knows no political affiliation and color. Yes, you see that the feminization of poverty and the face of poverty is a woman of color. And those dimensions will be there. But it should not be, Karima, that you look at color first before you decide what is the plan of action. We must now move our country forward by people offering solutions. I look forward to people giving me advice, because the people who experience the problems on a daily basis they also know what the solutions are.
Final question to you. You started your political career in the Pan-Africanist Congress. Do you see yourself as an African as well? And what does that mean to you?
I am an African, and I don't care what other people say. I'm a South African first. We are from the continent of Africa. Africa as a continent is busy rising, and women are rising in the continent. So this dark continent of ours has got so much potential. And we must not just look at ourselves here in South Africa, but we need to look further north and south and to the east and west and look at our other African brothers and sisters. And we need to begin to, especially the young people in Africa, we're the continent with the highest number of young people. That's an advantage that other continents don't have. And I certainly think that we need to exploit that more.
Minister, thank you so very much for joining me here on The Fix. I'm sure
the opportunity.
We will be speaking again shortly. Join me after the break for a look at the stories making headlines in the weekend papers.